Hello again, guys. This is the second class by Edmodo, and we are going to talk about the Roman cities and the Roman architecture. Okay, and cities in Rome were the main centers of Roman authority and influence, were the authentic centers of the life. The Romans founded new cities, and older cities grew. In Spain, for instance, in Hispania, as they call it, founded the most of the cities we have. Okay, Rome was the capital of the empire. Okay, at its peak, it had a population of 1 million inhabitants. So you have to take into account that Rome, the city, was a very huge city for the time. 1 million of inhabitants. Okay, an image of a Roman city, not Rome, but other city founded by Rome, might have this aspect. Okay, had a rectangular layout, is more or less a rectangular shape. Okay, as you can see. And it has parallel streets. As you can see, you can see here a parallel strip one to another. Parallels. Okay, it is a bulk of parallel streets. But there are two very important streets. As you can see in this plane, which represents a plane of a Roman city, you can see two very important streets among the rest, which are parallel one to another. As you can see, parallel, etc. But the two main streets I'm talking about are Cardo, which is this one vertical street, which ran from north to south always, and the other one is the Decumanus, which ran from east to west. You can also see in this place there is a kind of wall, a space which is called Forum. The Forum is more or less the main square in the city. Okay, was located in the center of the city and was the center of political, social, and cultural life. The market used to be there, and the political buildings used to be there. It was the most important space in the city, in the Roman city. Okay? In this another plane, you can also see even better the different spaces in the Roman city. You can see the parallel streets, always the same, the Cardos, which goes from north to south, and the Decumanus, which goes from east to west. And just in the middle, stuck in the middle of the city, there is the Forum. This is the Forum. It's kind of a place dedicated to political, cultural, and other kind of activities. It was the center of the city. Alright. For you to see it better, you have a kind of a scheme, a recreation of an ancient Roman city. And you have here the Forum, which is kind of a square shape. Okay, it's a square shape. And besides the Forum, you have the theater, which is more or less this shape, the temple, which is this, the aqueduct, which is all this, which goes from there to here. And besides, you have the amphitheater, which represents, for instance, the Colosseum in Rome. Alright. Besides those buildings, there are lots and lots of other kind of buildings, like the circus, the gymnasium, the public baths, and other kind of buildings that are a bit less important, but were a key in the kind of architecture in the ancient Rome. And you have to take into account that the architecture in Rome was the summum part of the engineer in the ancient Rome. Rome developed the engineer up to the top, and they were the first to be engineers and architects as professionals talking about. Okay, they were real professional architects and engineers. So, for instance, there is one thing that Romans performed as an innovation. This is the arc. You have to take into consideration that Romans were inspired in the architecture of Greece and also in the architecture of the other very important people who were living besides Rome, who were the Etruscan people. Okay, so Rome built buildings inspiring on Greece buildings and Etruscan buildings. Okay, but nor the Greece developed this kind of theater, which is called arc. Were only the Romans who started to use the arc in Western cultures. Okay, Greeks never used the arc. Another kind of element is what we call the vault. The vault is la bóveda, es lo que llamamos la bóveda. Básicamente lo que os digo, el arco y la bóveda fueron una innovación romana en Occidente. Okay, so you have to take into account that. Well, Romans were very good architects, were very good innovators, were very good engineers. Besides that, the materials they used to recur to its buildings were several, like the famous stone, Roman stone, which was very used all along the empire, all along the history of Rome. The stone, also the concrete. The Roman concrete was very innovative. Nobody had used concrete like this before. So Romans were innovators with that, to join different pieces of stone or different pieces of brick. Like this, Romans started to use the bricks. They began to use them as a very cheap and very useful material to build buildings. Okay, and what they did with those materials? They started to build different kind of buildings dedicated to different functions. For instance, we have the religious buildings, like this one. This is the temple. This is the most important religious the most important religious building. Inside this building, they used to celebrate different kind of rituals dedicated to all their gods. Dedicated to political and economic business, this is the most important building, which is the Basilica. Well, not the Basilica, no, the Curia. Curia is this building, the Curia is called. And what was the Curia? Was the building where the Senate used to gather to celebrate different sessions, to discuss any problem, to solve some aspects of the politic actually of the Roman people, and I don't know. Well, for you to know, this is the Curia, which is the place where the Roman Senate used to gather. And the other very important building dedicated to political and economic happens is the Basilica, which is this one. The Curia is a kind of basilica. So the Curia is the dedication to the dedication of the building, and the Basilica is the kind of building architecturally talking about. Okay, so you have to take into account that this is the Curia, dedicated to the Senate, but the kind of building is called the basilica. Okay, but there are other kind of buildings, for instance, dedicated to leisure time, to shows. For instance, the theater. The theater was the most important place for cultural Romans. They Romans used to play tragedies, comedies, and all kind of representations. The actors used to go up to this platform, and the rest of the public used to sit down around this place. Okay. And always had a semicircular shape. This is the key to distinguish the theater from the other most important building for the Romans, which was the amphitheater. The amphitheater is dedicated to shows, always shows, maybe bloody shows, like those who used to give the gladiator fights. Okay, but well, it was used for several kind of shows, like I don't know, ships fighting, gladiator fighting, animal fightings, etc., etc., etc. And the shape is kind of an oval shape, not semicircular, but oval shape. The other very important building for shows was the circus. The circus was not oval as you can think. The circus was large shape, enlarged shape, kind of a rectangle, and used to be used to different kind of races, kind of the car races with horses and well, etc. It was to be well the most important building for the Roman shows, but eventually was the circus, the amphitheater, who replaced the circus as the most important building for shows. Okay. Then, to sum up, as I said, the circus was always and only dedicated to chariot races, to races of cars. Okay. But Romans also dedicated some other kind of buildings to commemorate a specific moment, an important moment. This is the case of the columns, the Roman columns as this one, but also the victory arcs like this other. Both of them were dedicated to a victorious in any war or a special day. It was a dedication. Okay. Alright, and as the best engineers ever seen in the world, Romans also developed other kind of public works, like for instance the roads. The Roman roads were very famous all around Europe. There were roads everywhere. There were everywhere roads built by Romans. Romans also developed the bridges. Bridges were a very important building inspired in engineers in engineers aspects. Okay, it was the most difficult to develop because they have to be built on a river and on a valley, so the shape must be changed all around the construction. Okay. The other very difficult building to build was the aqueduct. The aqueduct, the one you can see here, is the one who is in Segovia, and is the most difficult kind of building dedicated to public works, and it was inspired in engineer aspects. Okay, so this is the most important you have to know about the Roman buildings and about the Roman cities. So see you in the next class.